Hello, everyone. Welcome to another webinar from Atria University, and welcome Thejus Joseph. Welcome to Atria. I think this is our first time, and I hope like we'll be doing a lot of other collaborations very soon. And anyways, welcome to Atria.
Hey, thanks, Dylan. Thanks for having me here. Hello, everyone. Yeah.
Great. So before we dive into all the details of new frontiers of technology in tourism, let me just introduce Mr. Thejus Joseph, the interim CEO of FiiRE Goa, a leading technology business incubator located in Goa, who has already incubated over 150 startups and funded 40 ventures under Mr. Thejus' leadership. Beyond FiiRE, he has actively contributed to Goa's entrepreneurial ecosystem through roles in committees such as startup task forces, IT and education at Goa, and so on. I think Thejus' entrepreneurial journey began with TechJiva, a hardware startup recognized by Kerala government, and from there to T-Hub, and then now in FiiRE Goa. So how is the journey, Mr. Thejus? How are you doing right now? And what was it like, all these years in startups and mentoring people, and how has it been?
Yeah. I mean, it was all accidental. It was not planned. The idea was like to become an entrepreneur throughout my journey, but then one break happened where I was in Hyderabad with the T-Hub. So thankfully, I was there in two ecosystems, Kerala and Hyderabad, when it all started, when a startup ecosystem was built. Now, Goa is in that stage right now. Like Goa is in a position where, things are starting up. And thankfully, I'm there focusing on tourism tech as a vertical. So yeah, it's exciting. The journey is exciting. Working with startups is always exciting.
Great.
Every single day is same. So, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So just to, for a clarity to all our audience, so today we'll be exploring the frontiers of tourism technology. Mr. Thejus and FiiRE Goa is actively working on helping people and startups and many other ventures and companies and group of people to actually come up with technology solutions that might help tourism. So that is what we are going to explore today, how exactly this technology that we see and hear in every day is actually shaping the tourism ecosystem in India as well as in Goa. Yes, we should explore, I think, even the global trend if possible. So I think in order to start, I think let us start from the very basic idea, how exactly this came, like, the technology and tourism together. So I think that is where we should start.
Exactly. I mean, this is also an accidental thing happened. If you look at any ecosystem that's being built, right, Silicon Valley or Bangalore, it's all not planned. It all happened organically and accidentally. So I'm hoping that that's happening for Goa when it comes to tourism. To give a context, right, while we started this, this was not something which we planned in the sense. Goa and tourism, everything is thriving during the pre-pandemic time period. So there is no scope for anything to be explored at that time. But while I was in Hyderabad, then I got resigned from that place and moved to Goa during pandemic time. I'm talking about some 32 months. It's already being the pandemic is hit. So if the first industry to hit was tourism. The moment the rumors happened, right, saying that something like this pandemic is happening, now literally everything got closed, and I'm one of the first victims, I would say, because my wedding was on Feb 5th, 2020, and my honeymoon trip to Thailand got cancelled during that time period. So I'm like, okay, that's one of the first impact. I know, thankfully, we are fine, but in a fun way we say that. But then we moved to Goa. We were working here, and one thing we realized was that I think we should do something for tourism related startups. So for your information, you might have heard of travel tech, hospitality, those kind of areas, right? But I'm sure that there is no such word like tourism tech, at least from India, was coined. So that's where we decided that, hey, can we do something about it? What was the conversation? Can we help? If at all any startups are alive, can we help? Was the conversation. So we went and spoke to Goa Tourism. They were more than happy to, support the initiative. So we did a call for application saying that Goa Tourism Accelerator Program, if you are a startup which can impact a tourism geography like Goa, you can be part of the program. That was the idea. Then, for our surprise, we got applications from 7 different countries, and 25 cities. So that's what when we realized that okay, there is a need for a support system related to tourism plus technologies. Now, I think this is the first time and the last time I have ever heard startups saying that we don't need funding, Tejas. We just need business. So, like, then I asked why? Because we figured out how to survive during the COVID time, last 33 months. But if you can get us business, that's what we are looking for. So that's basically our inception story. Now, fast forward in 2024, Feb, we supported more than 60 startups. And we ran 2 programs with one with Goa Tourism and one with India Tourism. And we are partnered with, what is this Mastercards, which is a tourism innovation hub based out of Spain, and we were a strategic partner for Tourism Innovation Summit happened in Sevilla. So we're getting a lot of international, interest to work with startups and related to innovation. And we invested in 5 to 6 startups who are related to tourism tech. And currently, we are in talks with other governments to replicate the business, the model, the playbook which we have in Goa. Our thesis is if we can do it in a geography like Goa, it can be replicated in Bali, Hawaii, Maldives. You can do it in other places, and that thesis is getting proven, these days, which we'll get into in our conversation. But that's our story, inception story. In fact, we own the trademark for the word tourism tech. So,
Okay.
And that's a new vertical that's coming up, and we would love to work with as many ecosystem players as possible to, make it common for so that make it evangelize the whole idea of tourism plus technology can be done. So, yeah.
Interesting and informative and exciting. So, I mean, and just to, I mean, to understand, so this, I mean, is this the first such a initiative in entire country, or do we have any other similar initiatives in other than Goa? Is it there anywhere?
No, in India, we are the first and only startup incubator that focuses on tourism tech as a vertical. You can
Wow.
Google it, you can see our name, when it comes
Okay.
to tourism tech. So that is one reason why a lot of startups in India reach out to us. So we ask this question: how you came to know that about FiiRE, or we have an incubator in Goa, right? When we searched, you guys are the only ones who are doing it, so that's why we reached out to
Wow.
you.
Great. Okay. So, okay, so let me just tell you how exactly I want to actually
Sure.
go through the entire webinar.
Please.
First, one thing, yes, I mean, since we are talking about tourism, definitely we should touch upon, sustainable tourism,
Yeah.
because I think that is the one keyword that is very popular nowadays. And then definitely, I think accessibility, all the personalization and customization thing comes under, all these topics of sustainability itself, I think. So we will definitely touch upon those areas, and definitely then we will move into maybe the real cutting edge tech that is being used nowadays, like AR, VR, or data analytics, artificial intelligence kind of technologies that are being used. So this is the general sort of a flow that I really want to go. So before diving into all that, I mean, again, I'm coming back to the conversation that we just started.
Yeah.
So since this is the first, such a initiative, so
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that you might have faced some sort of difficulties in coming up with this, because this is the first one in India and people doesn't know it,
Yeah.
and things has to go on, and anyway. So how was that journey to set up everything and just to be in that food?
Now, see, one thing we realize is like building a startup ecosystem anywhere in the world is a difficult thing. It's a 10 to 15 years, kind of, long-term commitment you need to have. And like, thanks to, if I was doing this during my startup time, right, I'm talking about 2011-12 time period, it would have been much more difficult because nobody knows about startup. I learned about entrepreneurship, or I was doing a startup after 2 years to the journey, saying that this is called a startup kind of thing. That kind of that knowledge was not there, or it was not evangelized that much. But thanks to the current initiatives related to startups, right, it's much easier that way. Having said that, it's a, you have to start from zero, saying that you have to convince the government, you need to get a buy-in from the stakeholders from hospitality and travel industry. You need to convince startups that there is business in Goa. I remember one of my ex-boss saying that, why are you in Goa, that's a vacation place. Now that we are having a conversation trying to see how we can work together. So like that shift I can see, and it takes time. You cannot do it over time, overnight kind of thing. It takes a long time to have to actually build a genuine ecosystem. And yes, it is tough. In fact, I had a call with OSD to tourism minister. So one of our mentors also, like on special duty, officer. So like I was telling him that 2 years back when we were discussing this, it was just a concept and nobody was, even looking into it. Like, anyways, let it happen. Nobody cared about it. Now we are talking about how we can work with the government, how we can work with hospitality industry with the tangible outcomes, right? So I was, it takes time because we have to get into a culture where before you need to do a lot of support early on, make them understand there is a need for this thing, and it can be, helpful. Once we get into the examples, I think we will explore this a bit deeper. But the idea is that yes, it's definitely a difficult journey, but that makes it exciting. So otherwise,
Yeah.
like we could have done the similar programs of helping one startup, or doing small things, but building an ecosystem, creating a vertical, definitely exciting. If you want to leave some legacy for the work you do, you have to take something. So yeah, it's exciting.
Great. Okay. Great. Super. So, so how exactly now FiiRE is being support? I mean, is it being supported completely by government, or there are many other organizations that is backing up? And how are you actually supporting these startups right now?
Yeah. So as a technology business incubator, right? This is funded by Department of Science and Technology, and this is hosted at DOS Engineering College. So all the DST, related incubators, TBS, and the host institute should be a technical institution. So that is the mandate. Now we completed 5 years, and yes, we're done with our funding and all those things. Now we are our own, generating revenue, and
Wow.
so once, of course, DST will fund you to run the incubator. But on top of it, we did CSR activities with the HDFC, ONGC, a couple of organizations like that. And we have currently we have a co-working space, and we are going to have a new co-working space in months' time. That's going to be 100 years old school, which we are converting to a co-working space. So this is
Wow.
in South Goa near Madgaon. So basically, it's a Portuguese, conservation zone. So it's aligned with the whole heritage vibe out there, near to Holy Spirit Church. That is 3 times bigger than the current facility. We're talking about some 75,000 square feet. Somewhere around, 300, 400 seats will be there. So it's a huge space. So yeah,
Great.
like that will be one of our revenue streams where we can showcase, Goan products. We can showcase startups, their ideas and all those things. So yeah,
Great.
that's
So,
that's
so
how we.
basically, if somebody is really very interested in any of this domain, they can. I mean, FiiRE Goa is actually physically can also incubate them, fund
Definitely.
them, and mentor them. That's what FiiRE
Yeah.
Goa is about.
Yeah. So like to just touch upon, how we help, right? Mentorship is something I personally feel it's a free thing. I mean, you can get mentorship from anyone and everyone. I feel at this point. So, but at the same time, if you look at, we incubated 150 startups, and close to 50 startups we funded also. So
Okay.
1/3 of the startups we are incubating, we are funding. So we have some 14 crores of funding, which
Wow.
we use to invest in startups. So for example, if any students Atria into hardware prototyping kind of startup idea, they can apply for our Nidhi Prayas program, which is a 10 lakhs funding to build a prototype. So you don't have to do a startup or anything at that point. That funding you can use actually to build a prototype. And if you see there is a potential to it, then you can build a startup out of it. And if any of your students, pass out students who wants to work on any startup idea, we have a fellowship program where we give 30,000 rupees per month for a year. Which means you don't need to focus on anything else, just focus on your idea, which will cover your basic expenses at least. So we have a lot of funding for, or the support system for young innovators on that.
All right.
And if you look at Goa, right, if you have an idea related to tourism or sustainability, you have all the stakeholders if you take a radius of 60 kilometers, right? Literally everything is around that. So it's like you don't have to roam around, and its traffic is less. Your cost is it's cheaper than any other metros.
Okay.
You have a chance to fully build something out of this place.
Great. So literally you're telling, hey, come walk in Goa because you have everything here.
So the fun facts, right? Like which I didn't know that Travis Kalanick, the CEO, ex-CEO of Uber, he and his team was like actually coding Anjuna Beach and Baga Beach and all, and while we were actually building the Uber.
Okay.
So which I came to know when I was in Hyderabad while we met him. But the point is that that's a validation. Even international talents, you don't need to invite them; they just come in and build products.
Correct. So I would love to know about the funding, details and how exactly our students can be a part of all these things. But I think we'll touch upon that a little later. Yeah. So I would love to direct the conversation to another direction right now. So I mean, so whenever we talk about tourism and applying, finding the problems and applying the solutions and all that. So we should talk about, I think, sustainability and all that accessibility and inclusion part of it. I think that is really very important. So how do you think I'm quite sure that it is important, but again, so how important is it, and how is it actually happening in the country, the context of India especially? So that is what I wanted to just explore.
If you ask me, like that is the most important thing at this point. I will tell you why, right? So for us also, we had an assumption while we started this whole thing, which we changed later. So we thought that technologies related to travel and hospitality is going to make that disruptive change in hospitality industry, which was not the case, which we realized over a period of time. Like in a startup, we also had a lot of assumptions. We went and validated this whole idea, whether is this something you need. But then what we realized is like the biggest threat any tourism industry is facing is the sustainability piece of it. To give an example, right now, Maya Bay is one of the beaches in Thailand. Like I don't know, like when I told this story to a bunch of students last time, they never heard of the movie The Beach of DiCaprio. Then I figured that I'm old, right? So the movie I actually shot on this beach. So now during 2019 time, they closed it because of all these tourist boats coming in. It actually affected, and 5,000 people every day comes to and visit that place. And the kind of plastic that they were throwing there, and it all affected their coral reef, their habitat really bad. In fact, 90% of the entire thing got destroyed, and they had to close it down for 3.5 years to actually back this whole thing. And they stopped boats coming to that place. They avoided swimming there and a bunch of other things, right? Now any tourism ecosystem is not far away from this kind of issues. If you leave this kind of plastic waste management is not being taken care, like people will start choosing different location is one effect. Now to give a global perspective of why sustainability is important, 8% of all these carbon emissions actually come from tourism industry, and tourism is not not one of the biggest industries compared to any other industries if you look at it that way, right? And 2.5% of carbon emissions in travel, the travel if you take as a whole, right, it comes from aviation. And I think less than 1% people actually use domestic flights in the world, but the kind of
Correct.
emissions it brings is like crazy. So if we don't, put our foot down and say that, look, if you don't do things on a sustainable manner, it's gonna really disrupt this whole thing. And it's not away. Like we can see, if you are not a responsible tourist, or if you are not do responsible tourism, it's gonna really affect tourism, not just the tourism, but the habitat also, for that matter. So coming to this Goan context or Indian context, for that matter, and India is like Goa synonymous, because when it comes to tourism, it's Goa, right? So we're talking about almost 8 to 10 million people traveling every year
Wow.
to Goa, a small place like Goa. And basically, during pandemic to 2022, I guess, out of 3 people who traveled, 1 person traveled to Goa. So that's the kind of these all are statistics which are available, right? We are not
Mm-hmm.
that great with, so it will be much, much more than the numbers we are projecting also, for that matter. So now
Okay.
those people coming in and leaving waste, or, having not responsibly using the space, it's disrupt this whole thing. Not just in Goa, that's the case with literally everywhere. Now, again, it's a luxury thing. The moment you hear sustainability, the moment you hear upcycling or recycling, or any of these words, right? That's for, high-end people, or that's something more like a luxury thing than a normal thing, right? And
Correct.
and it's true now. But if you are in a place like an incubator, an innovation ecosystem kind of a place, you need to look at innovations now, so that it will be a common thing in another 5 to 8 years. So we have a
Mm-hmm.
vision of making Goa the world's premier destination for tourism tech startups by 2030. What does that mean? Is like, if someone is thinking about building something related to tourism, think about Goa as an ecosystem to come down and build some out of this place. And if you look at the Gen Z audience, right, they are going to be get a good pay, or earning will happen in another 3 to 5 years. What does that mean? Is like, the moment Gen Z, like unlike millennials, I don't know, Jitin, you're a millennial, but I'm coming from more like a millennial this thing background. Unlike millennials, like Gen Z is going to be much more choosy about what they're going to do, instead of just tick mark kind of thing. They might prefer experiential tourism. You go to a village, you stay, or they
Correct.
ask this question as, like, okay, we get it, you recycle this thing, or you have a waste management system, but we want to see where exactly this is going to. And are you using indigenous products? Are you using Goan products if you're in Goa, or so this kind of questions millennials doesn't care. Like, if you, especially for a middle class family, you just need a space, right? But that
Yeah.
that behavioral shift is going to happen, and we are already seeing this in New York, I mean, West, or in Europe. It's already mainstream there. And it's a matter of another 5 to 8 years for India to catch up. So if you look at all these perspectives, right, and sustainability is going to stay. And if you don't have, now it's a luxury thing, I get it, but another 5 to 8 years is going to be a common thing or a norm. If that's,
Yeah.
and if you're planning for half the carbon, emission,
Mm-hmm.
50% thing, you have to do something about it now. Yeah.
Okay. So how exactly this technologies are being implemented so that we are sort of managing or trying to reduce these, like even if it is I mean, I believe that this is one of the, I think one of the problem statement that many of the people will be working,
Yeah.
managing all this waste and also sort of managing this carbon footprints. I don't know how exactly that's being done. So, is there any success stories or any
So,
ways that your people are working on
definitely,
this?
definitely. So there is like I will tell a few use cases. I will touch upon that. If you want to go in deep on any of those, we can do that also. But say, now 7-star hotels are like a single-use plastic is banned in those kind of places, right? What
Mhm.
does that mean is that you have to use glass bottles. But if you look at current glass bottles, those are like 750 ml bigger ones. Like,
Mhm.
instead of that, there is one of our startups called Srishti Life Sciences. What they do is like, they have a 330 ml glass bottles, which are cheaper than plastic bottles. What does that mean is like, if you keep reusing the bottle, the cost will eventually get lesser than the plastic bottles. So they have created they have a hardware machinery where you put this glass boards in it and it cleanse it. Like if you already used it, it will cleanse it and add water to it, add some herbal, leaves and those kind of things, and they put a barcode also saying that when it's
Wow.
been filled. So just imagine using this kind of system in all hotels, and we feel that people, people want, it's not easy. No, people are more than happy to carry a glass bottle to actually fill the water because they feel responsible. Okay, it's not going waste. I can reuse this whole thing. So that's now Taj is in conversation with them. So a few hotels are in discussion to see this can be implemented. Now there are a couple of startups who actually work on waste, say animal waste, like from the food, right, hotel industry. They use it to make all these cosmetic products. So
Oh,
you won't believe that this can be. They be around it, saying that, and we feel that is disgusting. Actually, not. There are people actually talk about it. We use this
okay.
to convert this to a big product, and
Okay.
obviously it doesn't. It's not discussing in a way that they make sure that is being taken care. Now they're doing a piloting. Now, like there's a vegetable oil, right? So that's another issue. After you use it once, now you have to dispose it, and it's a big issue for hotel industry. There are startups who are working on making it, making it reusable or making it for other things. So there's 2-3 startups like that. Even the energy efficiency is also a key thing. So there's one startup. What they do is like it's from IIT Madras. They actually reduce the electricity bill 30% using their devices with on ACs.
Wow.
So like
Okay.
like when you switch it on, that whole fight, and they have the retrofit device to actually pacify that, because most of this electricity consumption happen during that switch on switch off time period. The rest is more or less So that's an interesting use case in the sense when they came to Goa, they were doing it with commercial units. They were you doing it with households and all those things. When they came to a 5-star or a 7-star hotel, now they figured that it's a centralized AC. Their model works with single unit, not like the entire building. So they went back. They told that in another 3 quarters we'll come back with a refined product, because you have a market access of 6,500 hotels if you build a product like that. So you don't have to
Wow.
run around. You can just come, prove it to 2-3 hotels, then replicate that model to other places. So one thing led
Okay.
to another. That startup, we recommended them for Singapore Tourism Accelerator, and they got
Wow.
selected for that. And with this use case, they got selected there. So that
Wow.
was our first proof that, or a glimpse saying that if you can do something in Goa, that can be replicated in other tourism geographies. And
Great.
because they came and figured out this can be done through our program, they got selected. So these are a few
Great.
use cases you asked me related to sustainability as a piece. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So I think there is another point that I really wanted to touch upon is very related to this again. So I think from an Indian context, again, it is very challenging, and it is something that we have to address also. So which is accessibility and inclusion. So
Yeah.
when we come to tourism, it should be accessible for diverse needs.
Yeah.
We should sort of make it in such a way that technology and all these things are should be very inclusive, and there should be assistive technologies that are helping people to actually be in this ecosystem. So is there
Right.
any such emphasis that is happening from your side? How is that landscape happening?
Yeah, so this is something we are exploring, and we understood that this is a big issue. Say, for example, now assistive tech as well as for the old people, right? When these people, when they come, like they either send them to a temple or a church or something, and the others go to, youngsters go to beach and all those things. It's one reason is like the accessibility is the issue. Like now, for now we have this international event happens here every year called Purple Fest, where they talk about assistive tech that can be for tourism. Basically, you have ramps, in hotels and all those things, or you have ramps, or to walk to the beach also you have to create things where it's much easier, right? Now this is like a more like a policy level kind of concept, where a lot of things has to be involved, a lot of stakeholders needs to be involved. But in this context, recently, like one of the startups we funded 10 lakhs. So what he's working on is like, so for disabled people, using the washrooms, normal washrooms is a huge challenge. So he
Mhm.
created a system where, it's a pedal basically, where you can press on that, and so that the flush will like tech like that, so that it's not created in a way that it's accessible to their height and all those things.
Okay.
Now, this startup, based out of Hyderabad, he himself is a disabled person, and but he understands this problem better than anyone else. So it makes sense
Correct.
for him because it's his use case basically. So we got a like he's one of our rock stars, and he actually presented during the Purple Fest event, talking about
Oh. Oh,
there are discussions.
when is this Purple Fest happening? I mean, it's happening every year?
Yeah, every year, this mostly on Jan time period. Jan
Jan. So
second
okay,
to
so 2024 is already over, I guess.
it's over. So in fact, he
It's over.
came for that program. Yeah, yeah. In
Okay.
fact, he's the one who did volunteer training in some 8 to 10 colleges and got some 700 volunteers. Because the way you have to deal with assistive people who need assistance is different
Hmm.
from how you deal with the you know you have to ask them, for like, this is what I learned from him, right? You have to ask them whether you need help. Otherwise, it's offensive
Hmm.
for them to. So small things like that. But how to handle a blind person, how to take care of them, and he got like a huge response. Some 700 students became volunteers for that event. It's an international event.
Wow.
It's a huge event. So like, so that's one of our startups. We are more happy to. So we do small initiatives like that to promote and support assistive tech.
Great.
Yeah,
I think from the
long way to
government side
go.
also, the correct.
Yeah.
From the government side also, I think there need to be a lot of policy implementation and things should
Yeah.
come. And I think considering India, it is way in a not a really very mature situation right now. I think we have to sort of
No, so
look
the
at.
idea is that we have to educate, as I said, right? It takes time. It's a time to educate, but we are in the right direction at least. Now we are talking startups who can do that, and they have a
Correct.
chance to present. So at least we are somewhere. So maybe next conversation it will be much better.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So I would love to actually come back to the travel experiences and all that thing which is related to the tourism ecosystem. I think that is one of the biggest thing that we have to actually sort of look at. So how is actually these technologies right now? I mean, since you are dealing with a lot of startups and companies, how exactly these technologies are personalizing these experiences. We hear a lot actually about these words, personalized experience, and I think that is one of the trend right now. So how is that happening in tourism ecosystem in India right now?
So I would say it's catching up. I wouldn't say it's mainstream yet, because people still wants to do the tick mark thing. I went to Baga Beach. I went to Fountains for the photo. I went to Donapula South. Like it's just running around, right? But having said that, there is a percentage of audience who doesn't want to do that. In the sense,
Hmm.
so for example, like there is one of our startups called Offbeat Tracks. So what they do is like they do curated experience across the country. So it's in Ladakh or in Northeast and all those places. So basically, as a tourist, you'll be staying with them in the village, and you understand their culture, you understand their art forms. You actually stay in a village where you're having food with them, understand their cuisine. So like instead of just roaming around, running around, you will be staying and spending more time to understand them better, and
No.
that audience is like kind of picking up like as a new trend. There is one trend which is I was reading about an article from New York. So that's like again Gen Z is kind of going crazy on those kind of experiential is the right word if you ask me. And yeah, so that is something like it's happening in India, but it takes a bit more time. And all this curated tourism related
Hmm.
itineraries are being built for that.
So how is the technology helping this? That's I think we have to actually look into, right? So since we are
So this
talking
is
about technology in tourism.
now, so like again, technology means they use a platform to book is the technology, but now it went bit beyond from that. So I use the ChatGPT, this 4.0, right? The paid version of it. There's an amazing use case. There's Expedia, one of the booking platforms, right? They have a plugin there where, say, you're saying that, look, this is my preferences. Help me to create a real-time itinerary. You'll be amazed the kind of the output they get. You're just chatting with that platform, right? You are not talking a real person, but you put your preference. They ask you, like, say, what do you like? You like outdoors, or you want to go for hiking, or you want to party, or like you give your this, or you want to do tourism or spiritual tourism. The moment you give all those things and you give your timelines also, right? My flight starts from this time to this time, and this is where I'm going to stay. This is what it is. It's like as equivalent as one of the challenges for a lot of startups tried personalized itinerary and failed in India is because a lot of back and forth will happen and nothing will come out of it. And that
Correct.
business is like too it's not outcome. But that chat GPT, this whole thing actually is a great use case to create a, say, for example, you are in a Panjim, right? Now it will be a point where they know the location and the distance it takes from that to Chapora Fort, or Raise Mangoes Fort, or whatever it is. So it will be much more real time, or much more, or they can even tell whether it's closed on a Wednesday or Thursday, like that. So in fact, couple of our startups we are interacting with. One startup is called Tarzan, Tarzan. So they do these personalized itineraries. Now they are putting this whole chat GPT thing on top of it. They already have some 1.5 lakhs people visiting their platform for
Wow.
personalized itineraries. And the moment this use case also plugged into their engine with their data, it gets better and better. So yeah, like technology is kind of, and just imagine, right, a bunch of travel agents who are still doing it over phone, or that's going to be wiped out like crazy in another 3 to 5 years is what I feel. It's not a good
Oh,
thing, but it's going like any other industry. So the prediction is like 80% of jobs will be replaced by 2035, of something like that, right? And this will be
okay.
one of the travel agency thing. The only thing is that I have a personal rapport. That's why I'm booking through you. And if
Okay.
that's replaced somehow, which startups will figure out in another 2 to 3 years, that industry is going to get disrupted like anything. Yeah.
So that, I mean, so you're saying AI is taking over in this space also, and it's going to be we will see a day where we'll hear a news about, okay, so tourism tech is also getting affected by AI.
No, I wouldn't say affected. It's just basically you have to shift your strategy. Like
Okay.
I was talking to one of the tourism board members. So he was telling that earlier, like it was brochures, hard copy, right? So like when they did, like when he was telling that I was showing website, you can show a website and say that they ignored it. Then after some point, website became a booking thing. Then they ignored that. Now it reached to a point where you can have an itinerary less than 1 minute. Now, if you don't open your eyes, if you don't change your strategy, if you don't have your own platform where you can also do this thing, and if you don't leverage it, yeah, you will be going to be a dinosaur. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, that's part of it. I mean, there will be a dip, then it will get better. So all these things are better for innovation, is making it better and better. It gets
Yeah,
optimized.
and end of the
Yeah,
day, I think we will see a real great standard of life because of
exactly.
all this technology, I think.
So give it, if I take a tangent for a minute, right? So one thing is that if you remember all these strikes happened in Kerala during when the computer came, that is going to replace a lot of
Correct.
jobs. Right? Now we were like being a 90s kid. I was a kid at that time, but now we're talking that AI is going to, move or disrupt a lot of jobs.
Hmm.
Whatever education happened from that time, the impact has happened after almost 3 decades. The idea is like you are educated, then you start coding, you started doing things. The impact is now, basically.
Correct.
So
Correct.
whatever we learned at that time, we thought that that's going to affect now. Now is that whatever the effect you're talking about happening. And if you don't if you don't learn from the history, if you don't know where you're coming from, right, we are going to be, outsmarted by someone else. So we should be on that, at the edge. When it comes to innovation, you should know what's happening next.
Correct, correct, correct. I think that vision is really very important. All right. So, talking about it, since we started talking about artificial intelligence kind of technology, so what are the other very cutting edge technologies that is being used in this space? For example, we have, nowadays with Google's and Meta's and
Yeah.
Apple's, all those people are actually started exploring augmented reality, and not exploring, actually, they started putting the products in the market. So I think Apple's yeah,
Vision
that
Pro.
product was Vision Pro product was really very. I mean, it went crazy. Actually, people started driving with it on. So I think that is one industry which is actually slowly coming into the spotlight nowadays. So I
Definitely.
mean, such technology, are they being used right now? Is there any companies and startups that are working in this space? And what are the
Yeah,
use
yeah,
cases? Is there a real problem that these technology can solve in your space?
definitely. So one of the interesting use cases, like there's a startup called Who We Are. I think it's Bangalore based. So what they do is like they recreate the entire temple or any heritage locations, right? And using not just the virtual reality, they have the audio kind of experience also. They so if so I'm not, if I'm a person just going on taking some photos and just coming back, right? But with this experience you can actually see, understand that what kind of history is there for each and everything. like uh, uh, like instead of saying how these are rocks, no, like there is a history behind these rocks. And if that experience has been, it can be given, and even if it can take you to some 300 400 years back, how it looked
Mhm.
like that, back, because it might be ruins at this point, but it will actually recreate this whole thing. And it gives you that tells you that story, saying that what was this, and each and the importance of each and every these pieces, right? Now there is an argument that if they see this thing in AR VR, this thing, it will actually affect the entire tourism thing, which is not true. If I see something like that, if I see, hey, this is too cool, I need to go and see it by myself. Or for that matter, like instead of you spend half a day, it goes to 1.5 days, because you know a lot more than in otherwise. I'm not going to sit and read or understand this thing. But if you already
Mhm.
got a walkthrough about what is this, I would prefer to know this better when I go and So as a mandate, I think 2.5 days is the average a tourist comes to Goa. Now they
Mhm.
want to increase that to 4 days or 5 days. You need to give this kind of experiences upfront, so that that can be used for them to stay back and understand these things better, which means more revenue to the state. So,
Okay.
and there is one called Aug Traveler, which actually, it's augmented reality, which creates the model of, say, if it's Charminar or, Qutub Minar or those kind of things. And it all
Mhm.
gives you a walkthrough. So that you need to know the history first. So there's a lot of work has to be done before you actually put it out there. And you need a
Correct.
lot of permissions to create something like this, right? And because the heritage property, you cannot randomly give to anyone. So you need to do a lot of research. You need to talk to a lot of historians. You need to understand the history well.
Mhm.
Otherwise, each guide will be telling their own story. So when I went to Thailand recently, it was Maya Bay. The reason the guide was telling me was like, you cannot swim because baby sharks are there. So now
Okay.
maybe it's threatening people not to get into the this thing, but that is not the real thing. Maybe sitting nodding, yeah, 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 I think the baby sharks will be there. And why just in one beach, right? Not on other beaches, right? So that's a lame excuse, but the point is that, and we have seen a lot of guides like that telling their own stories, whatever they feel like telling, about it. So now a lot of research has to happen. You have a good experience using AR VR device, and then when you actually see it, it makes more sense, or it makes would love to go and. So if you see like Love You Zindagi, right? Shah Rukh Khan's movie, there's a showing that Para road, one road where the coconut trees are there. You see that
Mhm.
in this Goa, like literally a lot of people are there to take photos after that
Okay.
movie, right?
Okay.
So what I'm trying to tell is we can actually evangelize this whole thing, attracts more people to come down and see those
Correct.
places better.
Yeah, I think AR/VR plays a crucial role in enriching cultural experiences, that is for sure. So, talking about this, something came into my mind. I think now, I mean, yesterday I was talking to somebody else, and that person told me about a person who does a lot of interactive museum arts with
Mm.
technology, and those were really interesting, and I don't think we have a lot of such things in the country right now, but I think nowadays, people are actually, because I think in Bangalore itself there was like one or two places that I have seen really great interactive, I mean, technology being used for museum exhibits and stuff. Do we have anything
Yeah.
like that in Goa that is happening?
In fact, recently I think Aguada Fort. It's a basically like it used to be a jail or something like that. I mean, and yes, they created his entire virtual museum, the version of it, saying that you can experience something like that. So even in fact, there is one Australian-based startup. We arranged a meeting with Goa Tourism where they actually creates you that entire experience. So the museum kind of thing, what things, the history of Goa and all those things. You can have an experience like that. They come and understand, create something like that using all these hologram technologies and a bunch of
Oh,
things
oh,
like that. Yeah, yeah. So
great.
there are like again, when it comes to government and approvals, there are a lot of challenges. But
Mhm.
yes, it's innovations are there, technologies are there.
Great.
But again, this kind of museum heritage and all those things are a bit touchy on that front. You need a lot of
Correct.
approvals. Yeah.
Great. I think the next thing that I really wanted to actually ask you is about the data-driven approach, or data
Yeah.
analytics related part of it, because I think that is another area where people are talking like, it is changing the world. So how is that? I'm quite sure that because you've been telling like, there are a lot of people traveling to Goa at a time, and that's a lot of huge data, and obviously we have to actually sort of manage traffic, manage people in the beach, a lot of things are there. So definitely I think data driven approach is really very important, but I really don't know how
Yeah.
exactly that is happening in Indian context again.
Yeah.
So
I
so
think
what do you think?
this is a great, yeah, this is a great hackathon use case for the students and for anyone, innovators for that matter. When I say students, innovators for that matter, because it's still unorganized. Like this data, whatever you get is not enough. So it's a huge problem, if you ask me. Um, for a reference, right? Like if you move out of India, or if you take a global perspective, now there is an initiative called STAN based out of Singapore. It's like a
Mhm.
Singapore Tourism Analytics Network. That is the this whole idea. It's basically a dashboard which gives you real-time data of how many people are there, and it actually gives you insights on, say, this is now Feb, in June, July, how many people are going to come based bookings, based on the uh, the weather and a bunch of other parameters they take. Now that actually helps them to create a proper strategy, or like even I'm not just talking about marketing strategies. That's one piece. And once you say, if you know that the kind of age group, the kind of pricing, the kind of people coming in, they can target similar audience, saying that hey, like if something like this is happening, we can reach out to them with special offers. Chances are they'll avail that income. Now you can actually manage the traffic. You can actually manage the police force also. If you need to crowd, a bunch of things can be worked out. So the entire country's the analytics is being the police and all crowd, and I'm talking about Indian context. But what I meant by that is like you can have insights about real time as well as the that can be used for your future strategies to make sure that tourism is not affecting the entire country. So for example, even the waste management to pollution to the bunch of other, all these parameters can be collected. So use IoT devices to actually capture low cost IoT device to actually capture all these, literally all the data points has been tracked, which can be used to give insights. Now in India, that's a huge challenge. Like you might
do
have
do we
something.
have any do we have any startups currently working on any of such similar technologies with you, or
No, like in tourism, no. That is, in fact, that is one of the use cases. One of the, I cannot disclose which one, but one of the tourism boards actually asked us, saying that, "Can you do that for us?" So the
Okay.
challenge is that this data, like we don't have that kind of data that's on record, which we can use for whatever the reasons it may, right? The
Mm-hmm.
idea is like we might get some travel related data bookings we might get. For an extent, maybe from OTTs, we might get some, from booking.com or Atria, we will get some. So they basically give those data, they sell those data to government now, saying that, you can use these APIs to understand, but that is maybe 10 or 20 percentage. So
Okay.
if someone can work out something innovative way that which doesn't disrupt a lot, So in fact, there's one of the startups into like which we are exploring right now. It's a geo, this one sensitive related using satellite basically.
Okay.
Looking at and also using the anonymous data from the mobile phone. You can example
Mm-hmm.
say in a beach, you can actually understand the heat map, the crowd by looking at
Correct.
how many mobile phones are there using their GPS, tracking their GPS, and uh, understanding and getting a fair idea of what age group of people are there and how
Okay.
long they're staying. So in fact, that can be used like as a use case to see if there are any encroachments on the beach shore, any shacks are away from more using more space than they're supposed to use on the shores of the beach. So yes, there are startups out there, but we are still exploring how it can be leveraged. But yes,
I think that is one
data,
space where there are a lot of opportunities. If
yeah,
somebody can
data
come up
analysis,
with it, yeah.
that is something we would love to work with, or would love to understand better, because any data is useful on that front.
Okay. So
So
if anybody who sees this webinar has some sort of an idea, you will be funding, right?
definitely, no, there's no doubt. See, more than I personally feel again, you see the conversation, right? We straight out get into the funding part. So we're the first accelerator, they ask for the business. So that's what I want to promise also. In the sense, I have an idea on this thing. So you need to know whether this idea actually works or not before you putting or taking money out from someone. Right? So that is something we'll be able to help quickly, instead of you ideating in a place where tourism is not there. You come to this place. Let's take another 45 days. Let's talk to the stakeholders and understand if there is a need or not. If yes, then they can come back to your university, Atria university, and start building what it is. So
Great.
yes, then we can look for. We can definitely can be worked out. Not an issue.
Okay. So okay, now I think it's time for us to actually sort of talk about that, and slowly we will sort of wind up. So
Sure.
if I mean, I think the whole discussion was about how exactly these different technologies are being implemented and how exactly FiiRE is helping people to actually sort of identifying the problem as well as how exactly this being solved. So I personally understood that I think almost all the aspects of technology are really very important in order to solve all these problems in the sector. We need to actually do the crowd management. We need to understand the how exactly how many people are coming, how they are coming, when they are coming, because it's very interesting data from a government perspective and also from other business perspective. All that thing, and there is this waste management sustainability where we need a lot of innovations and technology related solutions. So whatever we are learning, I think nowadays in universities and academias and in anywhere in companies or whatever that thing is, I think IoT, AI, data analytics, everything is really very important, and that can be used to solve these problems. So now what I really want to know is like, okay, so from a university perspective, from Atria's perspective, we sort of teach cutting edge technologies. We teach IoT, we teach data analytics, artificial intelligence, robotics, all that thing. So when I mean, how exactly are students or any students, not just Atria student, I'm saying, but somebody who is actually in their a graduation program, who is proficient in technology and who has some sort of an idea. So how exactly they can sort of go with their ideas, how exactly FiiRE can help, what is that direction they have to take?
Right, right. See, the idea is that if you have an idea, which I spoke about regarding that EI or Entrepreneur Residence Program, that is one way. If you're after your college pass out, you want to work on something. Ideally, that's a huge challenge, like in the sense to have that mind space. Because if you're working somewhere and using your spare time to build, instead of that, you can have entire mind space just to focus on your idea for a year. The Didi EA or Entrepreneur Residence is one program which we have. Is that 30,000 per month I'm talking about, 3.6 lakhs in a year. Not a big amount, but if you look at the payoff, right, if it's a successful one, the kind of
I think it is a big amount for an undergraduate student. When they are actually studying and they're getting 30,000 a month, it's a huge amount for me actually. But just to actually, I mean,
yeah,
those who are actually listening to this webinar. So this program, I mean, is it? I mean, how is it being structured? Like
yeah.
anybody can apply for it? Is it like there is an opening time in a year, or how is it?
Yes. So at this moment, we have 4 more openings for this whole thing. We normally select 10 of them every year, and you should be a college pass out. That is one deal breaker slash criteria we have, and a science background, like
Okay.
engineering or a science background. So, but having said that, if you're a fourth year, if you are hearing about this thing, we are going to do this every year, right? So a program like this actually allows you to explore that as an option. So until today, if it's not an option, it's an option for you, for the next year or like whenever you're out of college. That is one.
Okay.
Having said that, if you are in college, we have this whole Nidhi Prayas where 10 lakhs as a prototyping grant. If it's into, and it has to be a hardware idea. That's the only criteria. But here, this money, the amount has to be used for actually building the prototype, not like
Okay.
yeah. So that is second. So if you do all those things, right, we have 2 more programs. One is like Startup India Seed Fund Scheme and Nidhi Seed. This is like an
Okay.
average of some 30 to 50 lakhs. So if you look at the logical progression, I come with an idea 30,000 per month to 10 lakhs to prototyping, another 30 to 50 lakhs to actually scale up. So you have
Okay.
literally everything related to funding in one place if you're
Okay.
progressing. So that way it's
Okay.
very friendly. Yeah.
So again, just to actually make this little clear to everybody who doesn't know keywords like seed funding,
Okay.
scale up
Okay.
funding and everything.
Yeah.
So the two funding details that you said, you used the keyword seed funding. That means if you have an idea which is not yet implemented, or if you don't have a proof of concept with you, just an idea, they can
Yeah.
actually approach with the idea and they will get the funding.
Correct. That is the fellowship, the on the EAR program I was talking about, 30,000. Even for the 10 lakhs also same. Like you
Same.
can still come with an idea and you can build the
Okay.
prototype program. Yeah. Rest need some proof. But if you want to take away anything, these are the 2 programs you have to keep in mind. Yeah,
Okay,
because
to get started with, I think these are the two better
exactly.
programs that people can focus on. All right. So I think what are the, I mean, other than funding, is there any other help from Fireside that is
Definitely.
being
So, like,
offered?
that's what, like, funding, we normally keep it as in backseat because before that, you actually need to validate an idea. If you whether you're solving a real problem or you're just doing it as an engineering project, those are
Mm,
different things, right? So,
correct.
like, when it comes to real world, there are a lot of other tools and techniques you need to know if there is a business angle to it. You feel that there is a business angle to it, but if you don't, being an engineer, like we have this thing, let's build the product, then we will figure out. It's like you have a hammer, now everything is a nail for you. So
Okay.
now you try to fit in everywhere. Right? Now, what we are saying is the other way around. You don't need to build a product. You come with an idea,
Okay.
understand if there is scope for it. Once you have an understanding, then you go back and build something out of it. So that
But I
you are
think
saving a lot of
that is where we have to focus on, right? Because other than, I mean, me by itself, actually, I've been telling like funding a lot of times. But other than that, I think we should focus on the idea.
No, so you just need to keep this in one thing in mind that either whatever you're building, right? Is it a painkiller or a vitamin tablet? We just need to think on that. Like, it's a good to have thing, or you're actually solving a pain point. So,
Okay.
like, once you have that clarity, then I think, and it's not your clarity. You have to talk to people.
Correct.
It's the inertia to talk to people will be a lot if you are a maker. In the sense, you love building something, but talking is not my scene, right? So you need a team
Yes.
member for that. So that's another thing. So
Cool.
what I'm trying to tell is that unfortunately, like this is a bad news, but 80% of things actually come out of talking, and technology can do only 20% of the solution part of it. So you really need to
Okay.
know what people need before you actually build it. So
Okay.
if that is integrated in any of the curriculum, I feel that that makes a lot of change.
I think that is interesting. All right. So one more thing I just wanted to actually ask you, and then I think with that we will sort of wind up. It's almost time. So
So
so I understood that the students who are actually pursuing the undergrads and everybody, if they are interested in pitching an idea, you guys are there. Now, other
okay.
than that, is there any sort of a collaboration that a university can do with an initiative like Fire Goa? Is there any other sky that we can explore?
Yeah. So
For
one
example,
thing.
one thing I wanted to actually ask you is like, especially I think we really want to actually send our students for internship programs, which is really
Sure.
very important for us because we believe that learning from the industry itself is really very good learning. So we
Yep.
used to send people in third years and as well as in fourth year of their undergrad program. So, I mean, do you offer any such internship opportunities for the students as well as any other collaboration that a university can do with FireGo?
Yes, of course. Like one is like I would suggest to work directly with startups, like whom you can be an intern. Instead of going to a corporate, working with a startup, if that is the career path you would like to explore, right? You will get a 360-degree of view of what's happening in a place. That actually
Correct.
helps you with your career, irrespective of anything. You having an understanding of what all things happening other than the tech actually allows you to become a better manager or better talent on that front. Also, like Fire also have a Fireflies is what we call. So there's an internship opportunity where you work with Fire closely with Fire, and that is like more into understanding the problems related to tourism tech, and it's
Okay.
more research oriented, more tech oriented, deep tech oriented kind of conversations in sustainability and all those things. So
Okay.
that's year round, like whenever, and it's not, there's no geography or anything, and I don't want to confine that to a 2 months program or anything. Like
Okay.
I work with some 8 to 10 really interested students whom I don't need to chase. They just come back
Okay.
and say, hey, I would like to work on this thing. So recently, one thing I'm doing like for the last 3 months is like I write to the founders I'm in touch with. In the sense, so the accelerator program Singapore, when I was talking about, um, so I write newsletters every week, weekly ones. So they actually got selected because they were reading about that program through the newsletter. Recently, one more startup got selected for Portugal Tourism Accelerator, and from India, for that matter, from Asia, there's the only startup who applied and got selected also. So they were asking how we came to know about this thing because we never publicized. So the kind of extent at which we look into tourism related innovations and programs is like we have a good network of students also supporting us doing the research. Actually helps the startups, right? So yeah, like, and in fact, if you ask me, right, couple of problem statements if I want to throw at this point, beach cleaning robot. If that is
Okay.
something someone has built, that's a crazy thing. And as simple as sunscreen dispenser on the
Okay.
beaches. It sounds like it's a silly thing. We can do that, right? Now, try to think about it. The kind of problems you're going to face. The idea is that it has to be on the beachfront so that the hotel doesn't need to send a person to give that sunscreen to the foreigner or the traveler who is coming in. Now, it
Okay.
looks, if you go and if you just meditate about this idea, the n number of problems you're going to face. Like if you want to actually implement this thing. But if it
Okay.
happens, 7-star hotels are ready to buy this like yesterday.
Okay.
So,
So we got two problem statement right now. Okay. Do we have more?
like hardware related, anything related to waste management, more than welcome. Anything
More.
related to waste
Okay.
management, that's huge space.
Okay. Okay.
Anything related to biodegradable waste management, those kind of things can work like crazy.
Okay.
Analytics, of course, any day. So
Okay.
the fun part is, you're working something related to a tourism kind of thing, where
Hmm.
that can
Hmm.
be there's a chance for as a ticket for you to do it in other internationally also. Like if you want to go to other tourist
Okay.
geographies, this is a perfect excuse to build something and go out of the country. Yeah.
Great, great, awesome. I think there was one student actually, as a part of his course, he created an intelligent note-taking app with ChatGPT plugin. So we were talking about all that thing. So that was one course that is running right now. As a part of that, he made that app. So such people, I think they need to know how, the opportunities like this, the funding
Yeah.
programs, what exactly FiiRE is talking about, and what exactly you guys are offering. And also for such a student and for such people who really want to know, what are the things that are happening from, these sort of initiatives. How do we get to know all this? How do we get updated with all these details? Is there any newsletters that we can sign up so that we'll get all the data?
Yeah, so at this point, I'm keeping it, very closed room kind of thing. But what I realized
Okay.
is, I think I should, again, we need to know like who is subscribing it. I really don't randomly want to put out there. But having said
Okay.
that, I'm having a newsletter which I'm talking about in Substack. It's called Tourism Tech. Incredible Tourism Tech is this thing. I think I'll share the link with you in private. But the
Okay.
idea
Sure.
is that I don't want to spam by putting literally everyone into that also. The idea is that.
Okay.
I'm writing this to the people I'm interacting with. So one of the
Okay.
options is like anyone with an idea would love to have a conversation with them, and then if it makes sense for them, they can definitely subscribe to it. But yeah,
Sure.
that's one way of.
Sure.
And I'll be talking about what are the new trends coming up, what are the new opportunities in tourism tech, what are the kind of funding opportunities coming up with tourism tech, and all those things, uh, which includes travel, hospitality, and sustainability, which kind of covers literally a lot of things on that front.
Okay. Okay, definitely. I'll be sharing that with the people who are really very interested, I think.
So,
Uh, and I think with that, let us wind up today's talk. And I'm quite sure that this session, I think it went a little longer than we expected, but it was really informative. And I think we got to know about a new domain that is being, implemented in the country. And we are really excited about it. Being a, technology related university, I think we can also contribute a lot to this ecosystem. We are looking forward to actually collaborate with FiiRE Goa and
yeah.
personal to you also. So I think we should get in touch. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thank you, Jiten. Thanks for inviting me. Like that's exciting. Like we tell this story a lot, and we have to keep telling this story to evangelize. And thanks for giving the platform and the opportunity. It was
So,
lovely talking to you. And, we'll be in touch and see how we can work together.